So we've mentioned that it's possible to look at a scatter plot and describe the association as positive or negative. We can also get into whether it's a really strong association or a weak one. And then we get into the subject of correlation, which is a measure of the linear association between two quantitative variables. So if we were looking at a scatter plot like we see in these images below, correlation is a number. It's always between -1 and 1. So a perfect correlation would be -1 or 1. And it's a measure of how strong this linear association is. So we'll catch on by looking at a few examples here of correlations. The first picture we see is a correlation of approximately 0. If I tried to draw a line to describe this trend, this perfectly horizontal line looks pretty good. This line looks pretty good. This line also looks pretty good, right? If all lines that you could draw through there, or at least a lot of different steepnesses, would look equally good, that's a good sign that your correlation is 0. There is no linear trend really to pick up. If we just work downwards first, the next one that we can see looks like we could describe that trend pretty well. So the line that we draw, we're trying to find a line that describes the trend and that feels fairly balanced on both sides of the line. This would be a correlation of 0.5 because we do see a linear trend, but it's not a very strong one. This is a fairly weak, we might call it a weak to moderate linear association, but it is a positive association because we can see that as the explanatory variable increases, the response variable tends to increase also. So this is a weak to moderate positive association. And we can see that the correlation is 0.5. It's a positive number, and it's halfway between 0 and 1, indicating that it's not super weak, but it's not very strong either. Then if we come down to this bottom picture, the line we would draw looks something like this. We can see that this is a pretty strong linear association. And it's a positive association. So let's say it's a strong positive association. So this is getting close to +1 now for my correlation. This is a correlation of +0.9. The closer we get to 1, the stronger the positive association is. So you could guess that a correlation of exactly 1 would look like this, right? Points that are perfectly on a line. They don't have to be perfectly evenly spaced, but they would all lie perfectly on a line, right? This would be a correlation of 1. And now if we look at the other side of this, we have our negative correlations. This one is stronger than the positive correlation we just looked at. It has more points. They're clustered closer to that line, and therefore you can see that we have a negative correlation that's very close to -1. And similarly, as we go up, we get weaker associations and we get correlations that are closer to 0. So a correlation of -0.7, this is a moderate negative association. And our correlation of -0.3, that's a very weak negative association. We can see that The line going in the negative direction here seems to describe the pattern a little bit better than a line going in the positive direction would. So it is a negative association, but it's a very weak negative association that gets us a correlation of negative 0.3. So one of the things we want to be able to do is look at a scatter plot and come up with a very rough estimate of that correlation. And remember, the correlation is a number. So we're not looking for a description when we say correlation. We're looking for a number between -1 and 1 to describe the direction and the strength of that association. So we now get to play the correlation guessing game based on your new knowledge. Go ahead and look at A, B, C, and D. Write down what you think the correlation would be. Remember, this is as a numeric estimate, so something between -1 and 1, and enter your guess without looking at the answers first. We want to get a nice distribution for the whole class. So to enter your answers, you want to come into Blackboard under 2.5 and click on this first link here that says use the form to enter your guesses. And you can enter your numeric answers for all 4 of these and then hit submit. After you have entered those, go ahead and click on the next link to be able to see what the correct answers are and what the mean guess is for all of your classmates. And you can see the individual guesses as well. Just keep in mind that this is anonymous, so you don't have to worry about being, shamed for having your answer be way off or something. And after that, there's a just for fun page that you can look at, spurious correlations, which you may find interesting. We'll look at this again later on in the semester as an example of the problem of multiple tests. So you can look forward to that going forward.